Stay frosty and head over to EasyMut.com for the cheapest MUT coins on the market. And when I say cheapest, I mean it. We're talking 1 million coins for around $40. Use code DIRECTOR for 5% off. Yo, what up, brothers? It's the Director, Chargers fans, and I guess all fans of NFL fantasy football. Welcome to the show today. Oh my God, I can't believe we're talking about fantasy football right now. At this time of year, when I start firing up the fantasy football podcast, the news articles, it means that football is around the corner. And I'm super excited to share with you guys today my thoughts on the top Chargers players and sleepers for the 2021 season. If you're new around here, maybe you're just looking for a Chargers fan insight on fantasy football players, welcome. Make sure to hit that like and sub. We'll be talking about the Chargers throughout the offseason and into kickoff. So excited. So today, guys, we're going to be taking a look at my top players that you should be considering for fantasy football, as well as some sleepers that I think have the potential to help you out in your fantasy leagues this season. Before we do get started with this, guys, I'm super excited to get into fantasy football. It's that time of year. As a reminder to all of the viewers here on the channel, we do have a giveaway going on right now for all my subscribers and members. The first item that we're giving away here is a signed Joey Bosa football. The first time we've given away a football here on the channel. Very, very exciting. All you guys got to do to enter for this one is hit up the link in the description and follow the instructions there, and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Only subs can win. Hopefully this goes to a good home. Again, huge thank you from me to you guys. A small token of appreciation for helping this channel make it through the off season. And speaking of making it through the off season, this would not be possible without our crew members here on the channel, of which I'm giving away a signed Antonio Gates jersey. That's right, the GOAT, to one of my crew members. Guys, thank you so much for all you guys do for the channel. Again, helping keep the lights on around here. All you got to do to enter for this jersey is be a member of my crew. We're going to be drawing a name randomly here at the beginning of August. And with that, let's get into this one, guys. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Gets you entered for that Joey Bosa jersey. Helps out the channel and battling the YouTube algorithm. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. My top Chargers fantasy football players that you should be targeting for your fantasy football league. Oh my God, I'm so excited. So what we're going to do in the first portion is I'm going to give you guys my numbers 5 to 1. I think there's 5 really solid players that you can add to your lineup, and then we're going to get into the sleepers. So let's jump into this one, starting with Jared Cook, who has currently got an expert consensus ranking of tight end 19, which this means he's a very low end tight end 2, tight end 3, maybe flying under the radar for a lot of people. You know, the way I like to play fantasy football, tight end to me, unless you're going after a Travis Kelce, or Travis Kels, I think is how he says his name is pronounced. How crazy is that? You're going after one of those top tier tight ends. I like to wait for tight end until the later rounds. Now, even a Jared Cook at this point might go undrafted in a lot of different people's leagues, depending on the kind of league you have. By the way, I think the rankings and stuff for this are in a standard league. Keep that in mind as we continue on. So Jared Cook, for a lot of people, I think they may not even give him a second look. But for me, as a Chargers fan with Chargers perspective, I can say that Jared Cook is going to benefit from a change of scenery. I do think that moving here with the Chargers' new offense, better situation than with the New Orleans Saints, who we don't even know who the quarterback is right now. He placed in the top 6 of tight ends in 2019 and 2018. What he brings to a team is a lot of good vertical looks, a lot of good looks in the red zone, and I do think that he could have a place in this Chargers offense, but maybe a little shaky. The shakiest player on the top 5 here as far as production, because of course Jared Cook, you know, being as talented as he is in the last couple of seasons, you'll notice here 9 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, a really good red zone threat. Justin Herbert, if we take a look here at Hunter Henry stats last season, didn't really favor the tight end position as much. 613 yards, 4 touchdowns, and only playing 14 games, which is respectable. But I would say if you're looking for a very low end flyer tight end, maybe a 2 tight end league, maybe Jared Cook is worth a shot in the later part of your draft. But you never know, you might see a lot of red zone looks, but those looks could definitely be stolen by the likes of a Donald Parham, or even this guy we're talking about right now. At number 4, we're talking about Mike Williams, who, yes, certainly could see a lot of red zone looks this season. Guys, this is the player I think I'm most excited to talk about on today's video, and Mike Williams. His upside this year is absolutely huge. He could be an absolute steal at 42. I think the experts have him at wide receiver 42 right now. He could certainly produce wide receiver 1 numbers. Now, if you're not a fan of this channel, you haven't heard me talk about Mike Williams before, let me explain why the upside for him, at least from a Chargers fan perspective, is so high. Joe Lombardi, our brand new offensive coordinator, came in and talked about Mike Williams and the role he's going to be playing with the Los Angeles Chargers offense, of course, being ex-receiver. That's the same role that Michael Thomas played with the New Orleans Saints, which, of course, the Chargers are going to be adopting a lot of offensive schemes from. This is very, very huge for a player like Mike Williams, who is on his last year of his contract, of course, on his 5th-year option with the Chargers. He's got a lot to prove, and I feel like the Chargers are not going to hold him back. This is kind of a test year for Mike Williams. He's on a contract year. He's got to put up or shut up, and I feel like Mike Williams is the kind of player that can definitely put up the numbers that will keep him on the squad. And, of course, I do think Joe Lombardi, the new offensive coordinator, has a lot to do with that. I feel like Mike Williams is going to be much more featured in 2021 than he's been in the past. But talking about the past with Mike Williams, of course, we need to take a look at some of his stats. I would say that we've seen signs of him being a low-end 1, high-end 2 in the league before. Of course, 1,000 yards in 2019, 10 touchdowns in 2018, kind of split the difference here in 2020 with about 750 yards, 5 touchdowns. I would say that's a safe floor. But for me, Mike Williams, if you want to take a shot on a guy, maybe in the later rounds, that has wide receiver 1 upside, the Chargers offensive scheme with Justin Herbert, Joe Lombardi, Brandon Staley, he does present a pretty high ceiling when it comes to his situation in his last year with the Chargers. As a Chargers fan, I hope he really puts up 1,000 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns, and stays with the team next season. So very interesting prospect there. I'm very excited to see Mike Williams and how he shakes out in the 2021 season. But again, the biggest thing to be concerned about with Mike Williams is definitely going to be injury. I would say most of his lack of production does come from him playing maybe a little bit injured, whether it be an injury that keeps him out of the game or an injury that hampers his production in game. That's something that you need to monitor throughout the season. Next up here at number 3 in our top 5 Chargers players, we need to talk about Justin Herbert a little bit. Okay, Justin Herbert right now, consensus ranking, quarterback 7. That's a very, very healthy, range for Justin Herbert at this point. Who would have thought that the Chargers rookie quarterback coming into last season would rank in the top 10 coming into the next season? Last season, he finished in the top 10 of quarterbacks in fantasy football in an impossible situation. No offseason for Justin Herbert. I saw an article a couple of days ago that Keenan Allen, the first time he had ever caught a pass from Justin Herbert was in week 2 versus the Kansas City Chiefs when he was thrusted into the starting lineup. Absolutely insane, the kind of potential that Justin Herbert has and the kind of show he put on in his NFL rookie quarterback season, of course, which did result in offensive rookie of the year. Let's say you're not a Chargers fan, you don't really know what's going on with the Chargers, and if Justin Herbert is worth an investment in that range of quarterback, well, let me tell you something. Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense, I would say Justin Herbert specifically, received the biggest upgrade a quarterback can get over the offseason. Lots of other teams throwing down for wide receivers like Julio Jones and top-tier running backs. The Chargers just instead decided to shift their attention to benefiting their offensive line. Okay, and this is going to come in play for a lot of different players on the Chargers offense. Running back should see a huge bump this season. Wide receiver should see a huge bump this season, having more time to get open. But more specifically, quarterback Justin Herbert having more time in the pocket to make decisions, not have to run away for his life as often. That's going to be a very, very big thing for Justin Herbert going into the 2021 year. I would say the only downside, maybe analytically, would be he might have less rushing yards this season as he won't need to escape quite as often, but he should see more production and quality plays, driving the ball downfield, converting the chains. I feel like, or moving the chains. I feel like Justin Herbert definitely is kind of slated right now in expert consensus in a really, really good spot with some pretty good upside, considering that the Chargers did maintain his weapons as far as Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Ekeler. That's going to benefit him a lot, minus Hunter Henry, which he didn't utilize quite a bit in his rookie season. Anyway, this Chargers offense looks pretty similar, minus the offensive line, which is going to benefit him quite a bit. The last thing I'll say here, taking a look at some of his stats, of course, from last season, very, very impressive, 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. We should see that number go up, not just because of the improved offensive line play, but also because, again, Joe Lombardi coming in here is going to shake things up as far as scheme. Last season, if you're not a Chargers fan, you won't know this, the most infamous thing you could see on game day was run, run, pass. And that was as a result of our ex-head coach in Anthony Lynn, who was an ex-running back in the league, and he wanted to run the ball no matter what, a lot of the times to a fault. Joe Lombardi, what he brings in this new offense, kind of a mixture of the New Orleans Saints, the San Francisco 49ers, and things that worked with us in the Los Angeles Chargers in the past, should result in a more balanced offense, which will give Justin Herbert more opportunity to pass the ball and give us a more balanced offense to keep him involved. So you combine all those factors, a full offseason, brand new scheme, brand new offensive line, the upside for Justin Herbert is huge. I would say more on the lines of actually winning games, producing in that way, but analytically, his stats should remain very consistent, if not better, this season. If I'm a betting man, I'm going to say Justin Herbert has as good a shot as anybody to break 5,000 yards in his sophomore season. Yeah, it's probably a hot take, but then again, Patrick Mahomes, the last quarterback to do that in his second season. I think Justin Herbert shares a lot of traits with that of Patrick Mahomes. Next up, let's talk about old reliable here in Keenan Allen. You guys know what's crazy? I think last season, Keenan Allen, I got him for a steal, something like the 3rd or 4th round. I was absolutely shocked to see him there. And of course, his situation wasn't as great last year. He had Tyrod Taylor throwing him the ball. A lot of people thinking that he was going to see a huge dip in production, which of course he did in week 1 with Tyrod Taylor at QB1. But with Justin Herbert, that completely shifts the narrative in favor of Keenan Allen, who's been one of the most consistently underrated fantasy football players maybe since he entered the league. A PPR king. We're talking about standard leagues in this video, but if you are playing in half-point PPR, full-point PPR, Keenan Allen needs to be among your best receivers to go after this season. He's averaged just around or just under 100 receptions a season, over 1,000 yards a season. This is the definition of consistency in Keenan Allen, just like we're seeing right here. And as Justin Herbert's #1 target, I think it's very obvious to say that's been his favorite target in his rookie season, likely coming into this season as well. Keenan Allen should be the same Keenan Allen. I would say a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. He's going to produce very, very consistently so long as he can stay on the field. A lot of people worried about his injury history. Again, if you're not a Chargers fan, you're wondering about the status on that, front. Keenan Allen, I feel like, has been mislabeled as an injury-riddled player. He does have a checkered past in that sense, but take a look here at his games played since 2017. 16, 16, 16, 14. So he's been very healthy. I think that's something you can put in the rearview mirror. He's going to be on the field more than likely throughout the season. Next up, we got to talk a little bit about the fantasy football king when it comes to full-point PPR. Okay, even in standard leagues, you have to pay attention to Austin Ekeler. At #1 on this list, Austin Ekeler perhaps has the highest ceiling of any player on this list. And it's because, of course, he does share traits with that of a Christian McCaffrey, who consistently gets picked, #1, #2 in fantasy football. I feel like Austin Ekeler could be seeing a season, at least has the ceiling to see a season very similar to a Christian McCaffrey, again, barring injury. I think he does provide a very safe floor, but a massive ceiling. Again, in PPR, if you're getting a point per reception, he needs to be a top 5 running back, locked and loaded, no questions asked. Set and forget, you are good for the season. In standard leagues, he does share a lot of that same value. And of course, the biggest value that you're getting in an Austin Ekeler is his production through the receiving game. Of course, on the ground, not too bad either. 530 a touchdown, 557 a touchdown. But where Austin Ekeler truly shines is in the receiving game here, man. Back in 2019, almost 1,000 yards, over 100 targets with 92 receptions. We should see very similar production this season as well. Of course, last season, kind of a bummer. He was on my team last year in my big league. Only 10 games played. That was a result of a hamstring injury. So that's something that you have to keep an eye on during camp, during this offseason. If you are going to draft Austin Ekeler, I would say fairly high, ranked at running back 13 in expert consensus. I would say I would highly recommend handcuffing him with the Justin Jackson or Josh Kelly, just to make sure you got your bases covered. But again, dude, this is a very, very solid running back to go into the season with. Tons and tons of upside through standard, especially through PPR, even half-point PPR. Austin Ekeler could grade out as a top 5 running back in a lot of different formats this season. So Austin Ekeler, definitely a guy you want to take a shot on. Again, low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2, and you should feel very confident that he'll produce consistently so long as he stays on the field. So the Chargers kind of turning a corner here. I would say this offense vastly underrated this season. The difference being that new offensive line. A lot of people don't pay attention to that sort of thing. So a lot of players, I would say the entire offense is going to benefit from that in the quality of plays that they're going to be able to make and the production that they're going to put up. So Austin Ekeler's running numbers could go up. Justin Herbert's passing numbers could go up. Even receivers like Mike Williams and Austin Ekeler should have more time to get open, and that's something they're pretty good at. Their numbers should go up as well. So now we're at the portion of the show. We're going to go over a couple of sleepers here just to round things out. I'll give you guys a few thoughts there. Of course, a lot of these guys you're going to find late in your fantasy drafts. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off here with Justin Jackson. He's ranked 66 among experts. Justin Jackson, to me, again, is one of those players that you're going to target at the very, very end of your draft, unless you do have an Austin Ekeler. You're going to want to snatch him up as your handcuff. I see Melvin Gordon potential in Justin Jackson. I'll say it because of this, because Austin Ekeler, as awesome as he is, I wouldn't say is the biggest threat on the ground. When you complement him, let's say with a big back like Melvin Gordon in the past, it really does unlock the potential of both backs. And I see Justin Jackson as being a huge value so long as he does pick up that role with the Chargers. If he's there on early downs, touting the rock on the ground, and then complemented with Austin Ekeler through the air, I think he could put up pretty surprising numbers for fantasy football players this season. But again, a lot of this does hinder on his health. That's been one of the few question marks in Justin Jackson in the past. But if he can stay on the field, he does complement Austin Ekeler perfectly. Now, speaking of running backs, the Chargers do have one more you should probably keep your eye on in Joshua Kelly. Now, Joshua Kelly's going to have an uphill battle if he wants to make the roster or even get snaps in the season. I think he ranked dead last year among running backs, but the potential is there. He had a heck of a camp last year. He might have the potential to do that again this year. And the archetype of running back that he is, he could definitely be a red zone vulture, a touchdown vulture, come in there in those goal line situations and maybe snatch a few touchdowns away from an Austin Ekeler, maybe even a Justin Jackson. You never know. So keep an eye on him. Between the two, though, I would say I'd rather go after a Justin Jackson. I think his talent is definitely better than a Josh Kelly, but Josh Kelly's archetype does make more sense for the Chargers in scoring situations. Now, next up, we're going to talk about a fan favorite. Bring in the chicken parm, Donald Parham. I think he's ranked number 38 among experts. Produced high numbers in the low snaps that he got. I think only 10 receptions, 159 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That does speak to some, efficiency, especially in the red zone, and somebody that might, develop a chemistry with quarterback Justin Herbert throughout the season. Of course, Justin Herbert, a huge quarterback, 6'6". Believe it or not, Donald Parham is actually taller than Justin Herbert at 6'8". So you never know what could happen throughout the season. This is a very deep sleep option right here. He could maybe split, red zone looks with a Jared Cook. He might even overtake Jared Cook throughout the season, but he's the kind of archetype of tight end that could definitely turn into a huge red zone threat because of his height, his presence, and his physical dominance in that area of the field. Not to mention, there was a point last season where Hunter Henry did go down, and the Chargers did supplement his production with Donald Parham and Stephen Anderson, I do believe, and they looked really good when called upon. So who knows how the season shakes out for Donald Parham. Another big name right here that we have to mention as far as the Chargers offense is going to be Tyrone Johnson, the speedy wide receiver who had a really good season last year, considering the amount of targets that he did get. This is somebody to watch closely in training camp. If I were a betting man, this would be the Chargers wide receiver 3. He's ranked 102 as far as experts are concerned right now. He could develop into a legitimate speed threat for Justin Herbert. Think Deebo Samuel, Robbie Anderson, Brandon Cooks. I wouldn't think he would be, a solid, high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1 by any means, but he could bring in, those clutch situations, those clutch points when you do need them in the right matchup. He's definitely the guy that could stand out for the Chargers as that speed threat. And when you've got a quarterback like Justin Herbert with a rocket arm, he can send it downfield. that's the kind of wide receiver that you can target in fantasy football to capitalize on that. But I like to think about it a little bit like Deshaun Jackson, right? In fantasy football, especially recently, Deshaun Jackson could certainly be a hit or miss kind of situation, but when he hits, he can certainly save you in any given week in fantasy football. A couple more here, guys. One more to keep an eye on. Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer, a lot of people ask me about as far as fantasy football. I would say he's very valuable in rookie drafts. Definitely pay attention to him in that format. But as far as a standard league this season, a redraft league, I would say he's definitely the definition of a true sleeper. He could break out by midseason, late this season, but more than likely he does see low reps in his rookie season if you're just kind of looking at the odds there. But there is a chance. There is a chance that the talent of Josh Palmer does make it into, you know, a top 3 wide receiver by midseason. But he's going to be one of those guys that you certainly take a flyer on, but definitely keep an eye on in rookie drafts. Now, the last thing I want to mention, and this one's pretty huge, guys, because we don't know what's going to happen. The upside is a lot higher than a lot of people are thinking right now. Let's talk a little bit about the Chargers defense. Okay, now the schedule does concern me a little bit this year for the Chargers and its defense. Okay, they're going up against a lot of high-powered offenses, you know, even out the gate in week 2, home opener for the Chargers versus the Dallas Cowboys. That's a very, very tough offense to slow down defensively, but I do think the Chargers have a lot of upside, maybe as a streaming option or somebody that you want to keep in the background because of Coach Brandon Staley. Coach Staley is one of those hirings that can transform a defense over one season. I'm not even kidding, guys. Look what he did for the Los Angeles Rams last season. He turned them into the #1 defense last year for fantasy football, and he could do it again. Even if the Chargers don't, grasp the #1 defense in the league, I see them as certainly improving because of the presence of Brandon Staley and the return of guys like Drew Tranquill, Derwin James, and you already got superstars out there like Joey Bosa, Kenneth Murray. It should be a really good season for the Chargers defense. Again, one that not a lot of people are paying attention to, but one that could surprise people. So certainly the first option that you get as far as streaming the Chargers defense, I would take a chance on them because their upside is certainly there, but keep an eye on them throughout the season. They might surprise like the Los Angeles Rams did and put up some good numbers for fantasy football as well. Well, guys, that's all I got for today's video. Remember to hit up the link in the description to enter for that Joey Bosa signed football, and hit the like and sub button on your way out if you did enjoy this content. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty.